This episode was sponsored by MPB, the world's largest online platform for used photo and video kit. Visit mpb.com. Hey folks, in this episode of the podcast, we're going to be talking about NFTs and the mystery around that space. I have an expert in that space on the show today, Mr. Donnie Dinch. He's the CEO of a company called Bitsky. This is TWiP. Welcome back to This Week in Photo. I'm your host, Frederick Van Johnson. You may have heard of these three letters called NFT that have been kind of floating and taking the world by storm over the last couple of years or so. You know, either attached to Bitcoin or crypto and all that stuff. And as a photographer, you may be thinking, you know what, I'm going to sit on the sidelines and let that stuff work itself out. I don't know if it's good. I don't know if it's bad. Regardless, I have FOMO and FUD at the same time. So what do? There are companies that are sprouting up that are doing some amazing things to help make it simple for folks like you and me, photographers that aren't crypto experts, to get in and not miss the boat with that. Bitsky is one of those companies, and the CEO of Bitsky is Donnie Dinch. He's here today to just kind of shoot the breeze about what's going on in that space. Donnie, how's it going, man? Welcome to the show.
Yeah, it's going really well. Thanks for having me. Excited to chat.
Yeah, I am too. There's so much. We only have like 30 minutes or so to go through this stuff, but I feel like I have 3 hours of questions for you. I'm going to try to compress it down into a manageable bite size. So let's start with a little bit of history of who you are and what your goals were when you created Bitsky. What it is all about before we dive into the whole NFT space.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my background has been in consumer product and package design out of school. And then around, 2008, 2009, I got into technology, moved out to Seattle, worked through a few startups, started a previous company before Bitsky, went through that whole acquisition process, and then, wanted to work with those same folks again. And we started another company. Didn't quite know what we wanted to build, but kicked around a few ideas. And around the beginning of 2018, Bitsky was born, and we got really excited about this idea of digital ownership. Oddly enough, we're pretty savvy in the crypto space and, understand it quite well. But a big focus of what we were doing was really around that. Hey, blockchain is now this new sort of technology that enables new user experiences for people. The thing that first really caught me was this application called CryptoKitties, and you could buy this like digital cat, and then you could sell the digital cat, and it all happened on the blockchain. And I thought that was quite novel. And meanwhile, playing video games, spending $100 a month on banana outfits in Fortnite. And I couldn't sell any of that, and it seemed almost criminal. And it's like, and to be quite honest, it's just like, this is a big idea. We think that, if you think of the blockchain as nothing more than a global source of truth of who owns what and what that stuff can do, it basically creates a new primitive of the internet that is ownership. And that means you can prove that you can own digital things. You can take it to different places so long as they support or listen to this global blockchain. And, it's a really big idea. And so Bitsky was really sort of an outcome-oriented business on how do we enable this sort of digital ownership for the masses. And that's really what we've been focused on for the past 3.5 years.
And that's kind of the idea of the metaverse, right? Where, Mark Zuckerberg tried to kind of co-opt the word metaverse, but we all know that, it's been out since what, Snow Crash, right? But
right.
The whole idea, as I recall from that presentation that they did, their idea of the metaverse is you should be able to take, like you said, some digital asset you purchase in Fortnite or PUBG or whatever, and take that somewhere else. You own it versus it only living in that environment. Is that's basically the case with that kind of ownership, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We kind of think of the metaverse not as one place, but a constellation of all the places you spend time, but with this underlying ownership layer that can, that your content can traverse across. And that doesn't mean it's going to look the same in all these different places. That doesn't mean that it's going to work the same in all these places. But, the blockchain really keeps track of what you own, and how it's displayed is really up to, the world that you go in. And I think that is a really big opportunity for people building, whether it's consumer social apps, virtual worlds and games, to the extent that you can enable creators to, that you can facilitate economic activity in these places, I think it's a really, really big idea. We spend all of our time on computers as it is. And certainly a lot of people, we've all played games for, our generation for at least since we were kids. And I think it's, more and more commonplace, but at the end of it, you really don't have a lot to show for it. And I think that, there are people that are really great at doing things in these digital places. And so to the extent that like you can facilitate this economic activity of, goods and services, I think that's a really big idea. And we really see sort of NFTs as the atomic unit powering all that.
Yeah, and I want to dive into that. Just help me understand this piece of it. So if the analogy you drew was kind of like the web, right? When like Web 1.0, a bunch of disparate servers or websites that are connected through an HTTP protocol that you can bounce around and see stuff, and it kind of all works as long as everybody's playing by a certain set of rules, i.e. these protocols. Same thing in this world, right? The Web 3 world. But how does that work when you're, if there's a Metaverse A and a Metaverse B, and there are digital assets in Metaverse A that you want to get over to Metaverse B? I'm assuming you guys are jumping in to be the connective tissue there. But does Metaverse A have to somehow have an agreement with B in order for those assets to transfer? And if it's a Microsoft and an Apple, now we know Apple's not going to play, but a Microsoft and a Nvidia, for example, how do you transfer those goods between the two if they don't agree to play nice?
Yeah, and I think this is really where the blockchain comes in. And I think, the blockchain that's taken the world by storm, that, I think Bitcoin came out first, and, it's for all intents and purposes, kind of a dumb blockchain. It's a store of value. You can't do anything that intelligent with it. And I'm sure there's people listening that are like, you can. But relatively speaking, when Ethereum came out, Ethereum allowed you to effectively run, smart contracts or otherwise like Turing complete little applications that you could deploy on chain. And with that came a whole set of standards. A standard of this is what a currency token looks like. This is what a digital good token looks like. This is what a semi-fungible token looks like. And really, I think when you think about let's say Microsoft and Nvidia and whomever, what they really need to agree on is to support that set of standards. And there will be like a series of businesses that come around and have certain translation layers for different chains. I think just to like skip forward of like what could be a 4-hour conversation, I think the ultimate world there will be a chain of chains effectively that everything has this sort of like liquidity around. But I do think for the the next 5 to 10 years, there's the chain that becomes the most popular that really facilitates a lot of this metaverse will create a set of standards that other people can adopt. And you've already seen this where Ethereum has really kind of jumped out of the gate and decided, hey, this is how we're going to architect these certain token types or whatever. And you've seen other newer chains sort of adopt small variants of the same sort of standard just because it's easier that way. And and to your point, this is something that we've seen play out through the web as well.
Yeah. It's so exciting. One of the other things that pops up, especially going back to again Facebook with their announcement and the Quest 2 and whatever comes after that, and then the rumored headsets from Apple and other companies. Is when I think of metaverse, I think I got to put my headset on to go in here. My headset is my passport to get into that world, and now I'm in there, and I'm in my little digital home apartment, and I've got my NFTs on the wall there, and all that stuff. That's one kind of aspect of it, right? Is that the holy grail of where this stuff is going? I'm going in Fortnite, and I'm hanging up an outfit that I bought in Fortnite in my digital closet at home to take out when I want to go somewhere else, or is it something different?
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting. I back to sort of the way that we kind of grew up, and I'm ballparking. We're probably roughly the same age. The 80s and 90s and VR and like Tron and all we've kind of created this skeuomorphic version of what we think a metaverse is. And Ready Player One certainly didn't help change that at all. But the reality is, I think that you can think of VR as an endpoint. Is like the difference between I can go onto the internet on my my desktop or my iMac, or I can do it on my phone. It's just VR is one terminal of many to how you would interact with this. But I think the important part of it is that it really comes down to this idea of like perpetual ownership and this idea that you have this ability to create value across different places. So it doesn't really, I don't think the medium is near as important. Like I would consider, the metaverse, like say hypothetically, I create I get some photo and I upload it to Instagram, and Instagram eventually maybe has a button that says mint when I upload, and then someone can buy that photo and put it on a wall in a video game, and maybe that's a VR world or whatever. But like it's more that you have this idea that content that can traverse different places. So I wouldn't over-index on it necessarily needing to be VR. I think that Facebook is making a big push on that, and I think I think this is a very subjective thing still. I mean, I know Oculus sales outsold Xbox and PlayStation over the past year. It's probably because PlayStation and Xbox were basically impossible to purchase. But I still think that, there's enough interest, but I think we're still a little bit early on a fully immersive VR. Now, what I do think is very exciting is AR. And I think we're basically just one hardware cycle away from that becoming a really relevant thing. But if right now we all wear glasses just to see better, but what if we could wear them to see more? And I think that's the opportunity for AR glasses. I could have a digital pet cat sitting on my shoulder right now. That could be an NFT. Like right now, I mean, and this is where, I guess, to kind of take it a little bit further. So I think the important part is people want to, when they're in these digital places, people want to represent themselves in the same way that they do in real life. Like I wear a t-shirt, I cut my hair a certain way. We all subconsciously do these things to say, this is how I want people to perceive me and how I want them to get to know me on first glance, or what have you. People want to do that in a digital place, and it's been otherwise pretty tricky. Most video games are sort of like a dictatorship from the perspective of allowing third-party content to live and operate there. Most games are kind of like North Korea to some degree, and you get 30 things to pick from this month, and if you don't like them, come back next month. But if you look at like a real life example, let's say the U.S., where we have free market economy, where we have imports, exports, we have all type of content that comes in and lives in our country. And it has to meet a certain set of rules and regulations, and the country takes a small tariff on that. I think that that's probably the future where digital places are going, because people want to, I want to wear whatever I want in a game. Do you know what I mean? If I want to be myself, and I think that that's just a bit of it changes the design space. But yeah. A little bit of a
what an economy. And when you look forward, I'm curious, as one of the players that are kind of helping form what this stuff is going to look like. Put on your Back to the Future hat, right? Jump in your DeLorean, jump forward 10 years from now. Where would you like things to be? Both with Bitsky, the NFT space overall, crypto, AR, VR. What do you see in 10 years, which is like 100 years in normal spaces, right?
Oh my God, it's a trillion years in NFT space.
I know.
I think that we look at ourselves, I'll say that we have the opportunity for Bitsky. We have two sides of our business. We provide a great wallet experience. You can think of it almost as the Gmail of wallets. If you're going to own something, you need a place to put it. Most wallets today require you to, manage your own private key. And that's a cool feature of this whole Web3 space, that you have complete sovereignty, or have the option to have complete sovereignty over everything you own. Put it on a flash drive or ledger, and throw it in a fireproof safe. Our assumption is that not everyone's going to want to do that, and that you're going to want a service to do that. And so we've gone really deep on great wallet security and great user experience. And then the other side is like the translation layer on the commerce side. So if you do buy something and it happens to be in some currency, maybe you don't have that currency, you shouldn't have that currency. Really, you should just be able to do whatever you want to do. I created something, I sold it. I don't really know how it happens. The same way I don't know what protocol, I actually do know what protocol we're talking about, because you mentioned it earlier. But generally, I don't understand the protocol that I'm having with like a live stream conversation like this. Yeah. I think 10 years from now, if we're going down the rabbit hole, what you see is this very much becoming the future of work. I think that the metaverse economic opportunity will probably dwarf that of the Industrial Revolution as far as influence on humanity and society. And I'm a very pragmatic person. I'm not pie in the sky about this. I genuinely believe that the work and jobs that can occur in digital places are going to be absolutely massive. And that doesn't mean we're going to be in a dystopian society like Ready Player One, where we're in the stacks and whatever. I just think that instead of getting on the computer someday and writing code, you might just get on the computer and drive a taxi in Cyberpunk 2077 or something, and you earn money in that game, and then you buy digital goods in that game, then you can sell those digital goods. I just think that there's easily like $100 trillion opportunity, which is an enormous number. But you lose when you think about like the exchange of goods and services that we have. There's so much friction in the real life, in the real world right now, whether it's like shipping, distribution, cost of goods, all these things, and a lot of that is eliminated. And so it's really kind of hard to imagine what all of these jobs will look like. But I do see it being a lot of goods and services and the creation of those things. And I think that's going to be. I think it's going to be absolutely I mean, it's inevitable. This is all very inevitable in my mind.
Yeah, I'm with you 100% on that. I think it's inevitable. But when you look at it from the standpoint of, okay, humanity is already distanced from each other, right? The interconnectedness and communication. We already have this computer layer with social networks and all that stuff in between just me and you having a conversation, even like this, right?
Yeah.
It's always kind of disjointed. And then you add a layer on top of it where we're in a metaverse, or we're, depending on whatever the portal, like you say, to use to get into the metaverse, we're abstracted even further. Is that a fear, or is that a feature or a bug, of this new world?
It's tricky because I don't know.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
I think, one thing that we think about with building technology, and I think this is a little bit relevant to what we saw that happened with, Facebook over the past 10 years. Facebook wasn't started by malicious people. The algorithm wasn't, of trying to get people to see engaging content wasn't malicious in nature. But there are these sets of unintended consequences that weren't really realized or thought through or anticipated. I mean, that's the whole point of that phrase. Yeah. Same thing that happened with, fossil fuels in, 60s, 70s, all the different things. And so I do think there's going to be a backlash. I don't think it's going to be nearly, I think humanity finds a way. And I think people will naturally sort of, I think most people will naturally sort of throttle themselves. I think that they'll spend, I already spend 8-10 hours a day, 12 hours a day on a computer, and I feel like I still have an okay social life. I have, children, family, whatever. I think it'll work out. Just I think the things that you're going to be doing during those working periods is going to look a little bit different.
Yeah, a lot of things. I think about this a lot, and this is a really insightful conversation because it's validating, some of my thoughts in terms of the world changing because of this kind of technology. We saw it already, like with healthcare, and especially with the pandemic, and people are forced to be socially distant. People are forced to get on Zoom and all that. But what if you lean into it and you're able to go see a therapist or some other medical professional through, whatever portal you want to, whether it's chatting like this or sitting in a room with that person, and have it authenticated, right? So that we know that person is who they say they are. And they have this layer on top of them that we know, okay, I am talking to the right person and their credentials are such that I should be talking to them. Being able to verify that versus, oh, you have a plaque on the wall, therefore you must know what you're talking about. What if you could have a level of understanding deeper than that? Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the other direction to really consider is that from the ability to get to know somebody and to to get emotionally attached with someone, and for me to really express who I am. If you kind of think about it, like I only have, outside of a lot of time to talk or whatever, there's only so many things from a physical perspective that I can do to really let you know who I am. But imagine from a digital perspective where there's not as many limitations to the physics, whatever it may be, that I can actually get a more accurate, a closer depiction of my own personality in a digital place than maybe I can in real life. That doesn't replace the IRL kind of the pheromones of talking to somebody and the small little nuances of that. But I do think that we're going to see people really, and I think this is really what's driving a lot of the time spent online, and kids hanging out and playing Fortnite versus not caring about winning, just spending time there. I think that it really is a place where you can express yourself a little bit more, and not to go too far down the rabbit hole, but this is actually why I think GIFs and memes have taken off so well, because there's something about a good meme that it can express what would take paragraphs and paragraphs, and you can just do it in one image. And I think that that's absolutely magical. I think, just the idea of GIFs and images, I feel have helped people understand each other so much better than, fumbling through, oh, this is what I mean about this, to be able to reference this one thing that we both know about. I think it's all very, very interesting.
Yeah, picture's worth 1,000 words, and now you can verify that picture with NFT technology, right?
There we go.
So then, what you said something earlier that I made a note to bring it back up, and that was around the AR, or augmented reality, being really interesting, in some cases more interesting than virtual reality, which requires all of your senses for the most part, or most of them, in order to engage with it. AR kind of fits into the real world. Can you talk about some ways that you might see that manifest, in kind of real world productive ways? Is it just seeing virtual art on the wall, or is it seeing a virtual menu pop up from a QR code, or what kind of ways do you see, from a founder standpoint, AR kind of changing our lives?
Yeah, I think it's just. I mean, I think certainly those examples make a lot of sense. I think one of the things that's most interesting is it gives you a new dimension to express yourself. So long as people are have glasses on, or what? Yeah, let's assuming they're glasses, contact lenses, maybe that in 20 years, who knows? But they can see more about yourself. So like I said earlier, like the pet on my shoulder, or that could be a number of things, and then maybe there could be other things that indicate my mood or whatever I'm really comfortable sharing. But I do think that there will just be a lot of subtleties that make life just. I think it'll feel very natural, and there'll be a certain window of this is how I'm going to use my AR glasses. So it kind of reminds me a little bit like when the Apple Watch came out, 2014 or so, and everyone was like, "Oh my!" Like you got the watch and you didn't know how to use it. You're like, "How often am I supposed to be looking at this thing?" Like holding it up, and like my arm's tired. I'm like trying to Instagram had an app, Twitter. I'm like, I'm supposed to be using an app on this. I have no idea. And I think that I think in the same way that we realize that, hey, the watch is actually just really good for like exercise and notifications here and there. And I think we'll probably figure out that same sort of use case in AR right now. I'm not 100% sure what it is, but I do think it probably will be fundamentally associated with representing myself, and then maybe just like augmenting whatever I'm doing from like a heads up display perspective, better navigation to where I'm walking, or, a reminder of something that's happening. Who knows what it might be, but just more casual sort of just slightly augmenting what I'm doing in real life, not replacing what I'm doing in real life. Although I did see a really cool thing where I think I don't know if this is actually real or not. But maybe a demo where a kid there's an app where you can make like an obstacle course, like at a playground. And so if you had the glasses on, you could run through the obstacle course.
Oh, nice.
So I think you see interesting things like that. So yeah.
Yeah, there's a ton of stuff. I'm excited to see what happens, right? Because
Sure.
it's basically, you remember that show that came on, that movie, not a movie, it was a series, Black Mirror. Yeah, it's basically Black Mirror. Black Mirror was a proof of concept for all the things that we're going to, all the way down to the contact lenses, right? Or being able to walk into a club or something and see a vaccination status or credit score above their head, right?
Right.
It's coming, right? Those are coming.
Absolutely. And you know what? It sounds so crazy to say, but like humans, if anything, throughout time have always adapted to this type of thing. When the printing press came out, everyone was like, "Oh my God, no one's going to go and talk to people. They're just going to be inside reading books all the time." I mean, I think even one of the Canterbury Tales was about like the student who just wanted to perpetually learn. Like I think there was a genuine fear that this type of content or this media was really going to replace like the roots of humanity. And I think just over time, and I've probably seen the meme of like, in the 60s or 70s, like a black and white photo of like everyone's reading the newspaper because everyone's complaining about, everyone's on their phone on a bus right now. But like, we've always had this. We've always had this desire to like, to be curious, but we always come back, or I think, I don't know, like humanity kind of just finds a way, a really cheesy way to say it, but
yeah. I mean, it's interesting because, we've seen it accelerated again by the pandemic. We've seen all this, some of this kind of manifest as the work from home space through, services like Zoom, et cetera, where, hey, now I don't have to be over there. Now I can be more productive and more environmentally conscious by staying my butt at home and working remotely. I'm still happy. I'm making my money. I'm paying my mortgage, but I'm not stuck in traffic. I'm not doing all that stuff. So that's one of the ways that this kind of might manifest, right? People may, like you said, either you're working in the metaverse or you're working through the metaverse connected to someone else that's also in there doing things. Yeah, it's really exciting. I want to dive into Bitsky a little bit, but before we do that, you mentioned wallets, right? And this is me just trying to understand the space a little bit better.
Sure.
I have a wallet, and I have some stuff in it, some coins. I'm playing in the space enough to be able to understand the space. But then when I hear things like, oh yeah, you can have multiple wallets. You need multiple wallets, one for this, one for that. The analog to the real world breaks down. I have one wallet in the real world that has all my stuff in it, right? If I lose it, I'm screwed, but I know where it is. It's all in one spot. Draw that picture for me. What's the analog in the crypto digital world, with these wallets? Is there a specific wallet that can only take certain kinds of currency? So therefore I need multiple wallets, or can I get one wallet that has everything in it? Like, break it down once and for all for us, Donnie.
Sure, absolutely. So wallets is an interesting sort of skeuomorphic representation of, this is where all my stuff is. Yeah. I think a better way to think about it is more of like, this is an account. This is where I keep certain things in certain accounts. So while you might have one wallet, you probably have multiple accounts with money in them, whether it's, an investment account, an IRA, a banking or checking account, a savings account. So I think you can probably think about wallets like that, like which wallet is the right tool for the job. And so in some cases, if you're holding, a $700,000-$800,000 CryptoPunk, you probably have that on a piece of hardware in a fireproof safe right now, which that gives you the security. You feel confident. You have deep conviction. Generally, when you have $800,000, you don't want to take responsibility for securing that. So it's an interesting perspective that a lot of folks take. But I think that, not all wallets support all tokens or all currencies and all NFTs. And I don't know that they all should. I think that, again, it kind of comes down to like the right tool for the job type thing.
Yeah.
And also it's a lot of work from a tech perspective to support tons and tons of different tokens and have a great user experience. So I think that the best way to think about it is that, if you're trying to do, and this is kind of where the Bitsky wallet comes in, we think most people are going to be using NFTs in a way that's very high touch daily. They're not going to be, thousands of dollars of each, I think they're probably gonna be $20, $30, $50. There's gonna be like a low price point for these things. They're gonna become very utilitarian, very high frequency use case type goods. And you probably want that in a place that's easily accessible. I can log in and connect it to an app and I can, or a game, and I can trade something or whatever. So that makes sense. And then if you want something that's a bit more, custody, if you want to take more responsibility for it, then you can, buy like a Ledger, which is a hardware wallet that can connect to a lot of like interfaces, different wallets. But ultimately, I think the two big ways to think about it, outside of what type of wallet, what type of token that a wallet can hold, do you want a custodial or a self-custody wallet? Meaning, do you want an expert to be, responsible for making sure all your stuff is safe, or do you want to be responsible for it? Yeah. And I think part of the early Web3 crypto ethos has been, I want to be responsible for it. And it's a very powerful thing. I just think that over time, that's obviously like it's, with great power comes great responsibility. It's a lot of weight. And, wallets also, they have these things called private keys, which is like, you have a public key that you can share with people so they can send you stuff. And then there's a private key, which you never give to anybody. And if you've used like MetaMask or anything, you get the seed phrase, which is like a mnemonic for, unlocking that private key. The thing is, if your key ever gets exposed, which has happened a lot because it's very easy to like hack a MetaMask or something like that, there's no recovery. There's no takebacks. It's not like you can just change the password. And the bad thing is, if someone finds that private key, they can just sit on it and just watch it and just get notifications until you fill it up with tons and tons of stuff, and then they can steal it from you. And so we've kind of taken a bit more of a pragmatic approach where we've put everyone's private keys in these devices called hardware security modules, which banks and things have been using for 10, 20, 30 years now. And we've have them configured in a way that they can never be pulled out of that hardware. It's like Mr. Robot stuff. Like if you go and if you shake it too hard, the whole device wipes and stuff. And these are living in biometrically secure data centers, across the country. Where we've gone very, very deep on that. In our mind, we're not religious about very many things, but we do think most people should allow their private key to be with someone whose full responsibility is keeping it safe, and they're experts at that.
Yeah, no, for sure. That's fascinating. When I think about it from a layman's / consumer or newbie perspective, when I hear wallet, I think, hey, I got a phone, I got an iPhone, and in my iPhone, Apple has a wallet, and they're hooked up with the banks with their Apple Card and all that. What's to stop Apple from just saying, hey, now you can put this other thing in your wallet, which is secured by your face or whatever, your thumbprint, whatever. Is that plausible that Apple might do that and kind of leverage their security ethos to kind of lock this down? Or is that kind of out of the realm? I know that's a completely newbie question. I'm curious.
No, it's a great question. And I think it's absolutely plausible. So actually, when you have Touch ID and you talk about, your keychain on an iPhone, for example, it's in like a little chip that is effectively like a mini hardware security module. And so similar technology. Now, from a product perspective and from a just, the way that Apple thinks about cryptocurrencies and stuff, I don't know that it's inevitable going to happen anytime soon. But I do think in the same way, Apple Pay was quite a long time after credit cards. Mm-hmm. And, I think it went pretty well. It would not surprise me one bit if Apple ever got into the wallet space. I think it would come with a certain set of limitations. It would be tied to a specific device, which you kind of see with Apple Pay as it is right now. Yeah, I mean, that's totally same with Google. I think Microsoft, any of these big players, this is not, we're pretty smart, but we're not the aliens. We didn't come up with something that no one else could figure out. So it's something to always think about.
Yeah. So if you look at this space, and we're wrapping up here, if you look at this space from, just use astrophysics as a metaphor for this. So you got the Big Bang, where everything happened, and then now, where things are now in a rapidly expanding universe. Where are we? If Big Bang is the start and now is current, are we a couple of seconds after the Big Bang in terms of the evolution, the maturity of this space, NFTs and the metaverse and all that, or are we at the beginning of, say, the Stone Age? Like, where are we right now?
Yeah, well, we're not close to the Big Bang yet. And well, I say not close within NFT years. So I'd imagine probably in the next 12 to 36 months, you're going to see a lot of products that really change what we do with NFTs. So right now, NFTs that you're seeing today, and by the way, quick plug on Bitsky, you can create and sell all your photos as NFTs. Very easily.
We're going to close with that for sure. Yeah,
perfect. But the big thing that you see with this is that you don't actually you don't do a lot with NFTs yet. NFTs today are kind of like websites in the early 90s. Like, we're excited, we have pictures, we have text, but there's so much more that we can do with. These are programmatic little mini apps. There's a lot of things that you can do with it. They can change over time. If it's, let's say it's a sweatshirt and, I run 100 miles in a game, it can get tattered or it can get good. All this sort of dynamic ability, we haven't even gotten close to. We're still kind of in the place where we're just, we're worried about the ecological concerns of the blockchain, because we're still figuring out how to do all these things, and a lot of these problems are in the process of being solved, which is wonderful. But I would imagine that let's say I think at best there's 5 million active people using a wallet right now, monthly active people. That's tiny when you think of humanity. That's nothing. And so, we're still early, but it is absolutely coming. There's a lot of companies, Bitsky is one of them, but a lot of companies that have really started to understand the opportunity of what you can do with this technology. And they're building all sort of we're still kind of in the infrastructure stage. Think like SimCity, when you're like laying the roads and the water pipes and the power lines. We're still right there. There might be a couple new residents, but we haven't built a metropolis just yet.
Nice. I love it. All right. I want to talk about Bitsky, because that's really exciting. I read the write-up on it and what you're doing there. It articulated from the CEO/founder standpoint, the problem that you guys saw and what you're solving and what people can look forward to, and how do they get involved with it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like I said, two sides of the wallet, which I think we've talked about quite a bit. You should have an easy way to store all the things that you own, and that's a big part of that. But the other side is the commerce side, and we have sort of a no code, sort of easy to use marketplace that you don't need to understand anything about blockchain or cryptocurrency. You sign up, you connect a bank account, and you sell your NFTs with a credit card. And you can kind of almost think about it like a little bit of a Shopify Lite to some degree. But we basically abstract all that complexity. Philosophically, for us, we're excited, we're very outcome oriented. We think that this is going to create new experiences, new revenue models, new ways for people to monetize the things that they're doing. You don't need to be an expert in all the underlying database nomenclature, and so that's probably the biggest benefit of using Bitsky, is that you can sign up and sell an NFT in 5 minutes. You don't have to connect a wallet, you don't have to have ETH, or you don't have to have any other sort of currency. You can just sign up and start doing it, and it's gone really well since we launched it about, I guess, February last year. This marketplace is we've worked with brands like Adidas, Levi's, WWE, all sorts, and all the way down to tons of individuals. And here's what's actually crazy about it. There's a lot of artists and a lot of photographers as well that on Instagram, you maybe have say 400,000 or 500,000 followers, but it's really, really hard to monetize that engagement. We did a drop with I think one photographer who, I think within a minute or two of these NFTs being listed, had basically made more money than he'd ever made in photography combined. I want to say he did something like maybe $80,000 or something like that with under a minute. It was insane. Wow. And I think that there's just I think that the opportunity for what you can do with this is just absolutely fascinating. I think photography right now is having a bit of a moment in the NFT space. If you look at all of the big NFT influencers that are buying a lot of the different, the project, the PFP projects that you may see, they're all really getting involved heavily on the NFT photography side. We're going to be featuring a lot of photography over the next, coming weeks. And yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
So exciting, man. How do you sleep at night? Like, I
Bro.
mean, there's so much going on. When do you have time to game? Like, what's going on?
It's really funny. I got this PS5 behind me, and I haven't even used it. Like, I just haven't had a chance. The best part about this is that it's so fun. Like, we feel really fortunate that we're able to like build in his time that. This doesn't feel like pre-mobile and then mobile, because that was a big shift, like having a computer in your pocket and all these things. This is like pre and post internet. Once maybe every 20, 30 years or in technology do we see such a fundamental terraforming of the landscape of what you can build. And this is just one of those moments, and there's just perpetual enthusiasm. I have like goosebumps saying this, like perpetual enthusiasm. And it's really like, I have no idea what everyone's going to build with this, but I'm sort of, hell bent on enabling all these like creative ideas. And so, yeah, sleep, we do our best. We try to get some every night.
It's like the transition from one age to another, like going from Stone Age to Iron Age or something. Like, oh, by the way, there's this new substance you can use to build stuff with. It's called steel, and this. So let's see what you can do with it, people. Here you go. Right? That's really
absolutely. And I'll say like one last thing. So one of our investors, and I'm paraphrasing him, is Chris Dixon, brilliant guy. He said, if you think like, how long do you think the internet's going to live? I don't know, let's say 4,000 or 5,000 years. I have no idea. To assume that 30 years into the internet that all the rules have been written and the foundations aren't going to change at all is just a bad bet in general. And so I think for anyone who's some skeptic on current applications of NFT or what people are doing about it, really need to think about this is a new like ownership primitive for the internet. And that's incredibly powerful. And so there's just perpetual optimism, regardless if there's like some small cycle or something that I'm not, excited about. I don't like this project or that project. The ultimate thing that keeps us going every day is that we have no idea what all these other new things are going to be. And that's just, I don't know, that's rare opportunity to build something like that.
Love it. We'll leave it right there, Donnie. Thank you for coming on. If people want to jump in and start minting NFTs with Bitsky, what do they do? What's the next steps for them?
Yeah, Bitsky.com. Click on the creator button and you can start minting.
Wow. I'm going to do that after this. I'm going to play with that. Dude, thanks for coming on. Great discussion. Like I said, we could talk more. You got to come back. We have so much more to talk about. I want to talk about fashion and avatars in NFTs and if that's a thing and all this stuff. There's so much stuff to talk about. We'll leave it right there though. And I suggest folks go check it out. Bitsky.com is the URL. And one last question for you, Donnie. We'll throw it for the folks, the photographers that are watching this and they want to get more educated on the NFT space from an unbiased source. Where should they go? Like, what's the best place to go to kind of learn and get up to speed on all this? Off the top of my head, I would probably search NFT photography on Twitter and just see what some of the successful ones are doing and follow along and ask questions. All right, cool. We'll leave it right there. Donnie, thanks for coming on. I appreciate it. This is TWiP. This episode was sponsored by MPB, the world's largest online platform for used photo and video kit. Visit mpb.com.